Hey guys, welcome back to the Oakley Podcast. My name is Megan Cummings and I'm your host. We're taking a little bit of a break for the holiday season, so we hope you guys have a lovely Christmas and a very happy new year. In the meantime, enjoy these greatest hits episodes from 2024 as we gear up content for you guys in 2025. As always, comments on the YouTube videos, Facebook, the comment form on the Oakley Podcast website. We're always looking to see what you guys want to see next. Before we leave, I do need to mention our sponsors. We're very grateful for their partnership, and that is Aero Truck Sales. Been with us from day one, and Lube Zone. Thank you guys for your continued support throughout the Oakley Podcast. Don't know where we'd be without you guys. And without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Well, let's get started with Luigi. Man, first, I appreciate you sitting down with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, just want to talk to you about your history and stuff. But first, I guess, as always, introduce yourself. Give us your name, your family, hobbies, where you live.
Well, my name is Luigi Llanos, Luigi Alexander Llanos Camacho. I am originally from Colombia. I was born and raised in the times of Pablo Escobar. I know that name.
Everybody knows that name.
Sounds familiar to a lot of people for many different reasons. I came to the U.S. July 31st, 1996. At 10 o'clock, I landed at JFK, so it'll be 28 years.
All right.
This year.
So that was for you to remember the day and the time, that was a pretty special moment for you.
It was the first time I was in a big plane on a 6-hour flight, and my biggest question at that time was, where is this plane going to land? Because all I could see is city lights and buildings. I was like, where is this thing going to land? You know?
Wow.
I was like, wow. Like I was changing my first tire from the people that came to pick us up in the middle of a lot of rain. It was like, blowout tire, 4 girls in the car, and then just me driving. It's like, it's all right, I'll change it. So.
Yeah,
my first 45 minutes in New York was like changing a flat tire on a car for the people that came to pick us up. I was like, oh, this is going to be an interesting adventure.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So now you got family here. You live in Rhode Island?
Well, I have actually been living in the truck since August of 2021. You know, I separated from my ex-wife, and I have a 24-year-old daughter. She lives in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, I really had just been on the road since 21.
Wow.
Yeah, switched my truck to come here because the other truck was too heavy, Volvo. But I like the Kenworth that I have right now.
So let's talk about how, I guess, go back to the beginning of you born and raised in Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
And then how did you end up in New York City?
Okay, so I went to school to learn how to speak English in 1992. So from 1992 to 1994, I had a 2-year program. I was working for the Statistics Bureau in Colombia. I was the purchasing assistant for the, for the purchasing department for the north coast of Colombia, which is 7 states. So one day I was walking down one of the main avenues and I see this tall girl and I said, she's not from here. And we kind of just looked at each other, and then I realized that the guy that was standing next to her was a guy that was in my class. So I couldn't remember his name. And then it finally hit me. I was like, oh, hey, Manuel. I just shouted across the street, and she turned, and then we both locked eyes. And I was like, hi, and we came and started talking to each other. He introduced me to who became my wife, Anna Carson. And we shook hands, and we're just looking at each other like, hi, And that night I went home, and I couldn't sleep. I was like, oh, my God, I'm in love. This is crazy. This is crazy. I'm in love with a foreigner. This is bad. This is really bad.
Was she from the United States? Or?
Oh, yeah, she was from the U.S.
Okay.
She's from New York, from upstate New York. She was going to Antioch College at the time in Ohio. She was
What was she doing in Colombia?
She was an exchange student, but she was a professor.
Okay.
She was not my teacher, though. I have to make emphasis on that. Yeah, I was not dating my teacher. So she was there. We dated for 1 month. She left September 3rd of 93. And the reason I remember that is because my city, Barranquilla, where Shakira is from and Sofia Vergara, from the same city, uh, the stadium in my city is the stadium that they use for the playoff, for the soccer playoff, for the World
Okay.
Cup. So I took her to a few soccer games, and then that was the day that our Colombia beat Argentina 5-0. So that was a historic moment in Colombia, and I remember that's the reason
Right.
the day. And then she came back in 1996, and we started the relationship again. But at that time, I had already finished the English program, and I was working for the Statistics Bureau. And she asked me, I said, "Do you want to go to the States?" I said, "Sure." I mean, let's do it. So we got married May 4th of 96, and in July, 3 months later.
In Colombia or in New York?
In Colombia.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I just left. 4 days I did not sleep before I left because I didn't know what was waiting for me.
Right.
Yeah.
She just said, load up and let's go to New
Yeah,
York
let's
City.
go. Let's just go. I was like, all right, we bought tickets one way.
Wow.
So I'm like,
Family? What'd your family think about it?
they were happy. They were happy because they're like, oh my God, we've never seen Luigi like this. He really is in love. Blah blah blah. And so we laughed. I mean, I laughed. That was crazy saying goodbye to everybody because I wasn't sure when I was gonna see them again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was part of the adventure of coming to the U.S.
Did you have a big family over in Colombia?
Oh yes, yes,
Do you still have family over there now?
yes,
Do
yes.
you
it
go
was-
home and visit occasionally?
I just went.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
just came back. I went May 30th to June 15th. It was great to see them. Unfortunately, we had a tragedy in the family. One of my cousins who I went to visit, 3 days later, he got hit by a car,
Oh my gosh.
struck and killed right on the
Oh,
spot
no.
on the highway. Yeah, he left 3 kids behind.
Oh.
I never thought that was gonna be the last time I saw him. Otherwise, I would have given him more crap, basically.
Yeah.
I'd be like, hey man, get it together. Like this is not how it is. So yeah, that was the only part. But besides that, it's great to go back home.
You try to do that often.
I'm going to now that I'm working for you guys.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So the goal right now is work 5 months and then go home 1 month. I've been waiting almost 28 years to be able to do that. To go home twice a year. I haven't spent the holidays with them in almost 28 years.
So what have you been doing over here for 28 years?
Oh my God, where do we go? When I first came in '96, my English was not that great. So I was living in Ithaca, New York. My first job, I was a grocery stocker in an organic store. For me, it was like a hippie store. I didn't know anything. For me, it was funny because the smell of the people around me in upstate New York, and I was like, what is that smell everybody wears here? It's like, oh, that's patchouli. I was like, what is patchouli? And it's like, oh, can I buy some? So then I start wearing that. So I jumped from that to being I started painting houses. I did painting houses for 6 years, painting houses and remodeling. Was a bartender.
This is all while you were still married.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was bartending close to Cornell University, and then I started doing advanced Spanish conversational. I became a teacher for some program there, TCI something in New York.
Okay.
So my ex-wife asked me to cover her for one night for the classes, and then it turns out that the lady was watching, and she said, I really like your teaching style. I was like, oh, you do? She's like, yes, I do. I was like, would you be interested in doing 2 semesters here at this institution? It's like, sure. So then there I was teaching advanced conversational Spanish to some people from Cornell University, which I thought that was great. I had a lot of fun doing that. But then I separated in 2006. And I became friends with the Sicilian guys who owned the pizzerias. So I learned to speak Italian because, the name is
Oh my
Luigi. So
gosh.
they're like, you need to learn to speak Italian. So I was like, okay, I learned to speak Italian. And I became really good friends with them. And then in 2006, I received a phone call when I was with my friend Fabricio. We started to use our painting houses skill. And one of the Sicilian guys, Salvo, he says, like, hey, Luigi, I need you to come and paint my houses just like you painted yours, because I painted mine with really bright colors. And they're like, wow, this is really great. Can you do mine? I was like, sure. So I received this phone call, and it was Giovanni, the owner of the pizzeria in upstate New York in Trumansburg. It's like, hey, Luigi, I got this guy on the phone. He says he needs a driver. I was like, what do you mean he needs a driver? I said, I'm in Elmira, which is 1 hour away from Trumansburg. It's like, yeah, he needs a driver. I said, I'm just going to put him on the phone. I was like, okay, cool. So then his Salvo passes the phone to me, but he's very mysterious about it. He said, you take this job, I'm going to break your legs. I'm like, what job? What are you talking about? So he gives me the phone, and I was like, hello, who is this? And it's like, hey, this is Jet. Hi, I'm Luigi. Yeah, Giovanni told me you're a professional driver. I was like, yes, how can I help you? It's like, well, we need a driver. Okay, when do you need me? We leave in 1 hour. I'm sorry. It's like 1 hour. I said, I'm in Elmira right now. It's going to take me 1 hour just to get back. So where do you need to go? It's like, well, we need to go to Chicago, then we're going to Colorado, Ohio, Kentucky, and then back to New York. I was like, sure. Yeah, I'll do that.
I mean,
And I didn't know what the gig was. He just needed a driver. I didn't know what I was driving or where. So I go back to upstate New York, go back to Trumansburg. He says, meet me at the fairgrounds, and then I meet him at the fairground. And then there's this gigantic Prevost bus. I was like, wow, look at this. This is nice. It's like, who owns this? He's like, this is what you're going to be driving. I was like, oh. I thought you just needed a driver for like a minivan or something. It's like, no, not a minivan. I said, just get on the bus. So I was like, oh, okay, sure. I got on the bus, and then they took me out for a road test.
had you ever driven one?
No, I never driven a bus like that. But I have been driving tractor trailers.
Oh, you had? You'd already gotten your CDL?
Yeah, I got my CDL in 2001.
Okay.
Yeah, I got my CDL in 2001. I came back. I went to school in West Virginia, Fraser's Bottom, West Virginia, for the trucking school.
Okay.
I did 3 weeks of that, got my license. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Went back upstate New York, needed to get a job ASAP. Looked in the newspaper, and there was a company that was hiring, Oakley Trucking. I didn't know what they were. So I went up there, and it turns out that they were milk tankers.
Okay.
The guy gave me a road test. He's like, how much experience do you have? I said, I just got out of trucking school. I have about 4 hours driving experience.
Right.
He's like, okay, well, we'll just go for a road test. I was like, okay, great, let's go for a road test. So he took me out for a road test, and the guy came back. He's like, so how is he? I was like, oh, he's great. It's like he's been driving for a long time. I was like, it's just a truck. I said, well, when do you want to start? I said, today, if possible. He's like, all right, come back at 6 o'clock. It's like, oh, okay. So I went back at 6 o'clock. And to me, that was like one of the funniest things about starting my driving career, because he says, this is the paperwork for your truck. That's your truck over there. It was a Freightliner, old Freightliner. That's your trailer over there. Here's my emergency phone number. If you have any problems, you call me. I was like, wait, where am I going?
Right.
It's like, you're going to Brooklyn tonight. It's like, Brooklyn, New York. It's like, yes, sir. It's like, all right.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I did not have a trainer. I was just
First load out.
grinding gears there. He gave me a whole lesson about driving a tanker and see how you turn and all these things, because I did get my endorsement. So I did that for 6 months, and then I switched to Star Transport out of Morton, Illinois. The trainer, he was with me for 3 days. It's like, why does this guy need a trainer? He drives better than I do. The guy's like, oh, really? So what are you suggesting? It's like, you know what I'm suggesting. Just give him his truck. So they made an exception. I'm like, okay, well, let's just give him his truck. So then 6 months later, they asked me to start training. I was like, training? It's more money, Luigi. You'll get a new truck. I was like, okay, sign me up. And I did that for 1 year. I trained 8 guys. That was very challenging. Having somebody you've never met sharing the truck with you.
Yeah.
You're not getting many hours sleep.
I can't wait. I need to get back to the bus.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're in the bus.
So I guess you're driving, and then you're also got your buddies that you're doing some odd and end jobs with, or the painting or something, and
right.
The guy tells you that he's going to break your legs if you take this job.
Right. So Salvo is like, you take this job. It's like, it's like, I just clean the house and turn it upside down for you to start painting. I was like, okay, fine. So then I told Salvo, Salvo, this guy needs me like in 1 hour. It's like, yeah, I know. That's his style with the phone. It's like, all right, just get the heck out. And then we'll go. So, but you're coming back. I was like, I'm coming back, Salvo. Relax. With the Sicilian guys. I was like, okay, cool. So I did, I saw everybody getting on the bus. And I still didn't know what it was. I just saw all these cars coming, people getting on the bus. It's like, all right, Luigi, we're good to go. It's like, all right. So we go. The first thing was in Ohio. And then I started to realize, it's like, oh, these are theaters. You're parking in the back. And then I saw them getting all the equipment, opening the doors. And I was like, oh, man. I was like, you guys are a band? It's like, what, you stupid? I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't know what you guys were doing. It's like, yeah, we're a band. I was like, oh, cool. It's like, you can come inside and see the show if you want to. No, I'm good. I just wanted to kind of keep it professional,
What was the band?
Donna the Buffalo. That's the name of the band. They're from upstate New York.
Never heard of that.
It's a very interesting following they have, from the guy that you can find living in the street to guys who own multi-billion-dollar computer chip companies and things like that, and everything in between follows them. So we used to do about, 130 shows a year, plus private parties, and then going to the Bahamas in a cruise.
Wow.
And I was the only one not working because I had no bus to drive. Like, it's like, Luigi's coming. I was like, sure, I'm going. So
You went with them?
Yeah, I did that. 7 years.
Wow. Do you keep in contact with any of those people?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you had to spend a lot of time with them.
Yes. I mean, we spend too much time. I spent too much time with them. I mean, so much time that I started to feel I didn't want to go into the hotels. Like, the bus for me was home. Mm-hmm. My bunk was home. The living room in there was home for me. I went to so many hotels, and they're just like, I might just go into the hotel to take a shower, and that was it. But the rest of the time, I'd just rather stay there. And it was just the amount of beautiful people that I met. Everybody was so grateful. The band was there. When I came to the U.S., it never crossed my mind that I was going to be like in that type of environment, and where, I used to say when I was younger, I was like, man, in America, everybody wants to be a rock star. That's what I used to say.
Having no idea you'd be
Right,
driving
I
a
had
bus.
no idea I was going to be involved in the whole situation. And I remember in one of the festivals, this lady came up to me, and she says, excuse me, she says, can I get your autograph? I said, my autograph? I said, lady, I just drive the bus. She's like, your name is on the album. I was like, no, it's not. She's like, yeah. So she grabbed the album, says,
Wow.
look, you're Luigi. I was like, yeah. She's like, special thanks to Luigi for his amazing efforts in keeping us safe. I was like, where would you like me to sign? So she's like, right here. So then after that, it was just unbelievable. So they allowed me to participate in 2 music videos. I was in the CMT channel with one of their videos.
Oh, really?
Wow.
And then at the same time, I'm also a web developer. I went to school for computer forensics.
Are you lying, Luigi, because you're on the podcast?
No.
I mean, is there anything he doesn't?
It just
No.
keeps getting
I
crazier.
graduated in 2006 from Tompkins Cortland Community College for the computer forensics program.
Wow.
And I was honored by that because my grades were good enough that the director of the program, she made an exception to have one student participate in an organization called the HTCIA, which is the High Technological Crime Investigation Association. So I was able to join them, and that was really interesting going to the meetings in New York City.
When did you find time to do this?
That's what I was about to say. How do you find
Well,
time
you
in the
know,
day?
with the band, you go on tour, but I have free time.
Yeah, I guess they come back home for
Right.
a
So
while.
in 2010, I launched a company called Local Latitude. It's a web development company. So I do have clients here in the U.S. And then in 2016, I was in Colombia, and I said to my brother, let's open up a branch here. And so now he runs the branch in Colombia. We have about 23 clients in Colombia too, just doing web development, social media, all this kind of stuff.
Nice.
So stay busy.
Sounds like it. I
Yeah.
have trouble folding my laundry in the evening when I get home from work. Goodness
I mean,
gracious.
Yeah, that's a task in itself, and he's
I
over here
know.
developing websites and
Like, is there anything? Okay, so we've got web developer,
part
bus
Italian.
driver, yes, Italian, pizza
Yeah.
maker.
In 2006, when I separated, I heard this little voice telling me, fast. I was going through a very hard time at that moment making that decision. And it was, I think it was December 2006. And then I heard that voice again. It said, fast. And I didn't know. I was like, am I going cuckoo here or something? So I started learning about fast. I was like, okay, well, Jesus Christ fasted. This other guy fasted. Socrates will have his student fast for 40 days in order to understand the theorems of mathematics and all these other things. I was like, okay, I'll fast. You know, so I started learning about juicing fast. You know, so I did 7 days. I was crying on the third day, you know, because my mind, it was just like challenging my mind to do that. My wife is like, are you okay? I was like, this is awful. You know, you're like, no coffee, nothing, right? But then I realized that that was such a powerful thing to do, like in your mind, letting go of so many things. It was like resetting my mind. So when I finished the fast, I got in the car with my wife and my daughter, and she says, how do you feel? And it was the first time in my entire life that I was driving the car. Now, mind you, I was going from Trumasport to Ithaca. I've taken that road 100,000 times. And after the fast, when I started driving my car going to Cornell, I thought it was the first time in my life that I was seeing that road. And she asked me, how do you feel? And I looked at her, and I'll never forget it. I looked at her and I said, there's no fear in my heart. Like none. Everything is bright. I can hear the birds singing, everything. The sky just looks different. You know, the flowers, the trees, everything, even the air. So I got hooked into fasting and I started doing it. So after that, my mind felt so clear that I went to the public library. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna start learning languages. And the first book that I picked was Farsi, which is Persian, the Afghanistan language in Iran. And I was like, oh, why not? So
I knew there was something else.
so I picked it up, you know, and I was amazed of how easy it was to learn it. Because I was like, oh, wow. So then I got a job driving limousines for this local guy. So I was driving a town car, and I picked up these passengers in Ithaca, New York. It was 3 women, 1 man. And they sit in the car, picked them up, and I started driving. They were going to New York City. And I started speaking this language. And I was like, that sounds like Farsi. You know, I was thinking to myself, that sounds like Farsi. And number one rule when you're driving limousines, you don't speak to the client unless you're spoken to, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm breaking the rules today. I was like, I'm sorry, is that Farsi you're speaking? And the guy looked at me. He's like, yes, you speak Farsi? I was like, I'm just learning, you know. And he says, why are you learning Farsi? I said, why not?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, just say something in Farsi so see I can hear your accent. I was like, oh, you put me in the spot. He said, well, say something. It's like, okay. ببخشید شما فارسی میفهمین؟ He said, your Farsi is beautiful. And I was like, wow, thank you. So let me introduce you to the people you're transporting. So it turns out the people that I was transporting was the director for the Middle Eastern Studies for Cornell University in New York City. And the two other ladies were from Iran. One of them was an actress, and the other one was an author of a book called The Circle, which talks about how Iranian women are put in prison when they speak their mind. And the guy himself was a professor of Aramaic, language of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just blown away. I was like, wow. It's like he's like, you need to continue to study the language. It sounds beautiful. It's like, oh, okay, thank you. It's like, oh, come out to dinner with us. No, I'm sorry, I can't. That's part of the rule. It's like, we insist. No, really, I can't. The guy grabbed me by the shirt. He's like, you're coming with us. So then I just started picking up other languages.
Yeah.
The books.
Do you know how many you can speak?
Well, Italian better. I'm still working on German and French and a little Japanese.
Wow.
Arabic.
That's just so wild.
Isn't that
to
crazy?
me.
That is awesome. I mean,
It's their sons, really.
but to have the desire to want to do
Yeah.
that, you know,
Yeah.
And to retain all of that.
yeah,
Keep them apart.
the mental capacity. That, I mean,
If you have any extra, feel free to lend me some.
Well, here's the thing.
Right.
I think it's the language program, you know, and the message that I'm going to say right now is not brought to you by Pimsleur, but Pimsleur is the program that I use, and the reason why is this guy, Mr. Pimsleur, back in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, I think it was. He came up with a method that you could learn any language by just listening and repeating, but the trainer teaches you to repeat backwards some of the words. So when you repeat something backwards, it tells your brain, hey, this is important information. I'm going to store it in long-term memory rather than short-term memory. So when you're learning a program and it's only 30 minutes, if you are asked a question at the end of the program on the language that you're learning, and you surprise yourself that your mind remembers it, and you answer the question just like that, like effortlessly, then you're like, oh wow, I know how to speak this language. And then a week later, you realize that you can repeat that, and then it just becomes like a song, because then you realize, wait a second, so there's 2,500 words spoken in every language around the world right now, the basic. And then when you learn those, because you already know what it means in the other one, then it just becomes like a song, you know, and then you're like, oh, well, this is how you say that in Italian, this is how you say that in Russian, you know. So I think that's easy. I think that's what makes it easy. One of the guys that just signed up for the program, one of the guys who graduated with the orientation class, Damani, he's like, Luigi, I'm signing from Pimsleur, bro. So he got it. So,
oh, he is.
yeah, he's learning Spanish. He's like, I'm coming. I'm buying a house in Colombia.
He's.
I was like, all right, good. So I'm waiting for you. There's a few guys that I've been talking to that want to.
You're an inspiration to him.
I sure hope so. You know.
Well, you are. But I kind of was wanting to see also how you got here. You know, I mean, I guess you were driving a truck. You were, and then at some point you bought your own truck.
Okay, so when I was driving the band, I went to a show in Rhode Island. Right, it's called the Ninigret Festival. And I saw this other woman, and we sort of hit it off. Anyways, make the story short, I quit the band, and then I started commuting from New York to Rhode Island. That was a 6 hour ride. And then I said to her, I'm kind of crazy about you. So she's like, well, you can just move in if you want to. I was like, oh, okay. So then I quit the band and just drove to Rhode Island and stayed there. We started dating. Next thing I know, we got married. And I got a job hauling, because I went to Rhode Island and I immediately got a job driving. I was driving for a company called American Mussel Harvesters, pulling seafood from Jonesboro in Maine. So started doing that, and I told her one day, it's like, you should come with me on the road. And she came. We had to go far away and come back, and she really liked it. I didn't know that she came from a family of money. It just, for me, whatever. So I said to her, I said, we should buy a truck. So we got into it, and we put the money. So it's like, all right, let's buy a truck. We put a business plan together. She ran it by her dad, and we got the truck. So then we got married. We got on the road. It was February 21. I think it was February 21.
And she was just riding with you.
She was just riding with me.
Gotcha.
Yeah, she was a PTA assistant, one of the hospitals in Rhode Island, in Newport. I was living in Newport. So that was kind of fun. So we did that, and then just for personal reasons, we decided to split. And she knew that I was going to keep the business. Her family knew too. It's like, well, Luigi put this business together. He's done great, did the research and everything else. And that's the reason I was telling you that I've been in the truck by myself since August of 21.
Okay.
So I ran my authority for 3 years. 21 was great. 22 was not so bad. And then 23, just the spot freight market coming down. I see everybody. I have a friend of mine who owns 20 trucks, and we just kept talking, kind of for like emotional support in a sense, So it's like, hey man, don't sell yet. And just the freight was terrible. Just the entire market. I kept following this lady. She has a channel in YouTube called Trucking Made Successful, Miranda, and she was doing a great job at breaking down the information from Sonar and from Freight Wave and all these other, statistics about the trucking industry. And we started following her. I think she went from 25,000 to like 75,000 followers because everybody said, hey, look, she's telling the truth about what's going on. And then in December, I think it was December 25th, I was sitting in a Kentucky truck stop, and I was working around doing my inspection, and there was a Oakley trailer, standing parked next to me. So when I was doing the inspection of my truck, I saw one of the hoses of his truck was kind of sticking out and not connected. So I'm thinking to myself, like, that doesn't look right. So I knock on the door, and the driver, he was on the phone. He looked at me kind of like, what does he want, So I was like, hold on 1 second. And then he came out. And I was like, hey, man, I'm sorry to bother you, but, like, is this supposed to be like this on your trailer? I was like, oh, yeah, it's supposed to be like that. But, hey, man, thanks for, pointing that out. I was like, oh, yeah, no problem. I mean, I would like someone to point something out on my truck or trailer if that were the case. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. I was like, who is this company? It's like, Oakley? And it's like, yeah. It's like, oh, so he starts talking about Oakley. 45 minutes later, I said, Matthew, I really appreciate you taking the time. And he's like, what are you going to do? He's like, what am I going to do? I'm selling everything. I'm coming to Oakley. So that night, I went on the computer, started looking about Oakley, doing research. It's like, what's the economy of this company? What do they do? And then I realized that trucking is just one of the things that you guys do. And I'm thinking, they must have steady freight year round. I was like, I never thought about hauling a hopper trailer or a tanker. Well, I had tanker experience, but not a pneumatic or an end dump. I always thought, man, the wind goes. No, I was like, I'm not doing that. So, and then the challenge was to sell the equipment, considering how the market was and still is with the high rate prices and everything else.
What kind of equipment did you have?
I had a Great Dane trailer, Everest edition, special edition with a Thermo King C600. That was $76,000 cash for that trailer. And I had a 2021 Volvo Globetrotter, the 860 model, 500 horsepower Volvo motor. That was great because I was with her, I was like, no, this is the best truck for a couple. So big, It's like I'm not going with any Peterbilts. You can't even walk through here to spend time with somebody in the truck. It has to be something spacious and that kind of thing. So then I did all my research, and on December 31st, everybody was celebrating the new year, and I was sitting at a truck stop with like 20 other guys, and I'm thinking, that's it. I'm not doing any more loads. And I look at the closest truck dealership, to you guys. And I said, well, there's one here called MHC. I know they promote Aero Sales, but Aero Sales doesn't have new trucks. At least as far as I knew.
Right.
I was like, no, I'm going for a new truck. So then I picked MHC, and I did my last load in Florida. And I said, I'm leaving Florida whether I have a load or not. I'm driving to Little Rock. And I drove here and went to MHC. I introduced myself, and I said, look, here's the situation. I need to trade everything off and get a new truck. I'm going to work for Oakley. And I wasn't even approved or anything. Had
you even talked to us? A recruiter?
No, I haven't talked to a recruiter yet. I think I made one phone call to Harrison.
Yeah?
Yeah. And I told him, he's like, oh, okay, all right, well, this is what you need. And that's when the truck search came, because my truck was too heavy. I was like, okay, cool. And I remember meeting this guy at MHC, and I sit in his office, and I said, I'm not leaving here until we find a truck for me. And you're going to tell me how much you're going to trade this truck and trailer for, and here's all the data that you need. And I literally sat in his office from like 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 p.m. And the guys were coming and being like, what's with this guy? He's like, he's determined to get a truck.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's like, and I basically spent it, I think it was like a week. I parked my truck right there in the trailer, dropped the trailer at MHC, and I think the entire thing took about a week, the process. Yeah, I just stay in the truck and go back and sit in his office. Then like, wow, you're kind of persistent. It's like, I know what I want.
Right.
It's like,
except you hadn't talked to anybody over here.
Right.
It wasn't approved yet. You just knew what you were going to do.
I think a good driver always practice the art of visualization. It's like, even if you've never been to the place where you're going, you have to visualize yourself arriving safe, somewhere. Like you went through a storm, it doesn't matter, but then you say, okay, thank you, God, I'm here. Yeah. And I think a lot of people need to do that more in their lives.
And you visualize being here.
You visualize. Mm-hmm. So I was like, when I made that decision, and the people that know me, my business partners, because I had a limousine company at the same time that I was driving the band. And I was also working as a web developer for a technology called Drupal for a pretty big outfit in upstate New York. So I had a limousine company, doing web development with Drupal, and driving the band. All these three things. So I didn't have a day off for like 6.5 years.
So bring us up to today. What do you have going on today?
Well, right now,
are you just an Oakley owner-operator, or do you still have...
There's no way that's all you do.
Yes, actually, yeah. I've been happily busy. I got into the hopper trailer. I watch a lot of the videos, so I have to be thankful to a lot of the guys that work here at Oakley who have their YouTube channels, Robbie, ex-Marine guy,
Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy, and Paperboy, and all these other guys, because I actually had a chance to meet them in person,
Oh, good.
Like when I saw them, I was like, "Hey, Paperboy!" It's like, "Hey, that's me." It's like, "I love your channel, man. You taught me a lot before I come into Oakley. You were part of my research." It's like, "Oh, thank you." So that's great, because a lot of companies don't do that. A lot of drivers don't do that.
Right.
So I'm like, "Oh, this is awesome. This is really is educational." I mean, Jimmy's channel, he's so fluent in
He's great.
economy languages. I actually had a chance to meet him right after someone in his family passed. I ran into him in Ohio, or I think it was. So came to Oakley, been doing the hopper, been pretty happy about it for sure. The steadiness of it. But for me, as a person who doesn't have a property, I don't have a place to stay. I mean, it's just a truck. I can go back to visit my friends in New York. It's great to be able to run into some of the guys. Like, for example, in February 20th, when it was our last day of orientation, like, we created this little group, so we had,
With the other guys in orientation.
with the other guys in
Okay.
orientation, like, we actually had a great time at the hotel. We'll sit down. So we have Bobby Prickett. His CB handle is Big Country, a big guy.
Yeah.
Andrew too. Demani, who just got his Peterbilt. And then you have Bruce, who went into End Up. Mike Davis, who went into End Up. And yesterday I ran into Lloyd, who we call, he wants to call himself Cotton Top, I guess, because he's getting older or something. So it's kind of nice, because we text each other. I mean, we call each other almost every other day sometimes.
That's awesome. You stay in touch.
Oh, yeah, we stay in touch. Last night, somebody's like, "Hey, you at the yard?" And so that's kind of nice, because we know about the places we're going, what's happening, weather-wise and that type of thing. I know their names of their kids and their family and talk to them. With Matthew, I talk to Matthew every other day. He sends me pictures of his family. It's like what the plan is, cryptocurrencies and all this other stuff that we talk about all the time. So that's kind of nice, because all of a sudden you feel like you really are part of a family. And that's a big thing, because it's like
You've created that here. I mean, with the people you went through orientation with.
Just like the other day, I was driving to Texarkana, I think it was, and here I am cruising. All of a sudden, I hear on the CB radio, "Hey, Luigi!" "Hey, what's going on, brother?" And I was like, "Where are you going?" It's like, "Ardmore." It's like, "I'm going back to the yard. You be safe." "Yeah, you too."
Don't even know who it was.
I was like, "Who was it?" But that's kind of nice, because they recognize your truck, and I just couldn't see which truck was talking to me. I think it was a black Peterbilt, but I didn't recognize the voice. So that's nice. That's nice to run into people that.
So let me ask you this, Luigi, before we gotta shut it down here. But what's the future? What is the future for Luigi?
This should be really, I mean, you've set the bar pretty high.
You've set the bar high.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. I don't know. I mean, I thought about trying pneumatics, but I think I like hopper too much right now. I just put an APU in the truck, so here's what I visualize. I want to stay here probably for a while. I don't know, maybe 10 years. I'm in the process of getting a property in Colombia from my mom, and then probably get something here. Hopefully I'll find a good Lord-fearing Southern girl,
I bet you will.
and stay here in the state of Arkansas. I'm considering moving everything, my CDL to Arkansas and everything else. Yeah, I probably want to settle out here.
It's a great place to be.
I like it. So far, so good. Like the weather, like the people.
So you don't
That's
think
saying a lot, because sounds like you've been everywhere.
Just like Johnny Cash.
Yep.
That's right.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Be everywhere. It's fun.
So you don't think you'll move back to Colombia? You just go back and visit?
I'd probably just go back and visit for now. Yeah, probably go back and visit. I think I'm past a certain point because I've lived here longer than I have in my own country. You know,
When's the last time you've been back?
I just 2 weeks ago.
So and how long were you over
I
there?
was there for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, the longest I have been without seeing them was almost 8 years.
Wow.
How was the reception?
Oh, it was great.
Was it?
Yeah, it's just
Mom, I bet she.
yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, my brother, my sister. My sister is married to a guy from Syria, Damascus, Syria. They were living in Riyadh in Egypt. The war broke
Wow.
up there, so they moved to Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, and then they're in Colombia now. They've been there for 5 years.
Mm.
Yeah, because not a lot of countries, after some of the rulings that they were given, were accepting Syrian citizens, and he's a civil engineer who was actually, ironically, specializing in the reconstructions of historical monuments. And then the Aleppo war took place, and all these bombs and destroyed all the buildings in Syria. He's like, I gotta go somewhere else. So they moved to Rio, and now in Colombia, he became a Colombian citizen. Colombia was one of the only countries that actually offered him citizenship. So he took it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there now. It's working over there. My sister, too, with the school.
Well, I hope to have you as an Arkansas resident one
Yeah.
day.
I'd very much like to.
Be nice.
If you've shown anything, it's that the world it's not anybody's oyster, it's Luigi's oyster. I mean,
You know, it's, I want to put it to you this way. And I know that we have to cut it, but this is what I think about this. When I was growing up in Colombia, by the time I was 19 years old, I had already had 9 guns pointed to either my head, my chest, or my back because of the situation. So every single time that you realize that your life has been in someone else's hands, and for the mercy of God, you're not dead, you kind of automatically have this sense of appreciation for life. That you're not to be in a rush, you're just, past is past. Future, you don't know what it's going to bring. But today is a gift. That's why they call it present. So when you multiply that 9 times, then you're like, man, I need to relax. I need to just take it easy. Like the Bible says, every day is going to bring his own thing. Mm-hmm. So just relax. It's all going to be fine.
wow.
I mean, really, it's all going to be fine.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. We're here.
We're here.
Yeah.
We're here.
It is.
We're here. So, same thing on the road. We're all doing the same thing out there, but people take politics, religion, race, so many of these things that are really
Really don't matter.
don't matter. None of them matter.
Yeah.
We're all doing the same thing, and there's so much aggressiveness out there. The guys that don't even have a CB radio, and you're trying to communicate with them, letting them know there's an accident ahead of them. I see guys now driving, they got their iPads, watching Netflix. I hate it. I really do. I don't use that word, but I hate when I see guys with their feet up the window like this, doing their nails, driving, and watching a series. Like, what are you doing?
Mm.
Man.
Yeah, that actually goes on out there.
Because the reality is, everybody says, I was like, that's never going to happen, or it's never going to happen to me. But when something happens, when something tragic happens, and it turns out to be one of your own,
Yeah.
then you look at it in a whole different perspective.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm not a rat. I'm not a snitch. These are the words that I hear. It's like, no, call it in.
Yeah.
Call it in, because if it's your daughter or your wife who was in front of that guy and that he had no reaction time. So I guess to close it up on my perspective is just kind of be responsible driving out there. Respect everybody.
Yeah.
Respect everybody. Respect the four-wheelers. You already know if they got plates from other state, they're going to do something in front of you. So just back off a little bit. Don't be riding people's tailgating that way because I've been doing this. I've been driving for a long time, and thank God I've never been into an accident or anything like that because I'm cautious. That's what they taught you in trucking school. Recognize a hazardous situation before it becomes an emergency.
Yeah.
When it's raining, just keep it down.
Well, you've got a challenging job. All these guys out here have a challenge every day.
It is.
Driving down these
It
roads
is.
with the way people don't understand what it takes to operate a tractor trailer. The stopping distance. They don't understand, and it's sad that they don't because it can cost a lot of them their lives. That's unfortunate.
I think government can change that in a way because when you go to take your exam for the first time you're applying for a license, I don't recall that there is a state in where 1 or 2 pages or even 3 or 5 questions within the test address the stopping distance of a commercial vehicle.
Yeah.
So if you're 16 years old and you're just first applying for your license, but you read, hey, Dad, did you know that a truck will take 3 football fields at 70 miles per hour? Wow. That's something that will call people's attention, and they're going to remember it. But if it's not taught,
yeah.
You can't expect any change. That's the definition of cuckoo.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah, keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. That's not going to happen.
I think we're going to have another sit down with
Part
Luigi.
2. Yeah, absolutely.
Just a lot of good information, a lot of good stories.
Right.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Very
I
interesting.
appreciate it.
And it's been fun to do. I'm glad you
Thank you. I appreciate it.
have sat down and told us your story, and it's very interesting to hear. I never expected to hear all this.
No.
Did you,
No,
Megan?
I'm speechless.
I know, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Well, and that just goes to show you the variety, I guess you would say, of owner-operators we have at Oakley Trucking, and the how many smart people we got because of their experience, like Luigi, and just all of our owner-operators. We just got so many good ones that we don't even know about, that even touch their story. I bet the guys you talk to every day, they've got a story.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
They've got a history.
Oh, yes, they do.
They do.
Yes,
and
they do.
That is, to me, I don't know. I like bringing that stuff to our listeners.
Me too.
I think it gives that insight of what we're about here and the kind of people we look for to come join Oakley, the kind of people we are. I just think it says a lot. So.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, Luigi, thank you once again, man. I appreciate it. Megan, thanks for joining in.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a good one.
I had to pick my jaw off the ground a second
it's
ago.
fun. I'm looking forward to going back and listening to this.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, thanks everybody listening to the Oakley Podcast every week. We really appreciate y'all, and we're glad to bring you a new one every Wednesday. Be sure and check it out and tell everybody about it. We'll talk to you next week.